Hello, Lauderdale County parents and students. We will be using this training video to explain our acceptable use policy and student guidelines for our students to be able to access and bring home the new Chromebooks for each one of them to use for our in and out of school classroom instruction. So what I need you to do is your child should have brought home the 4-page document that is called Remote Learning Acceptable Use Policy and Student Guidelines. You may want to have that on hand while we are going through the PowerPoint. Everything in the AUP agreement form is what we will be going over on the PowerPoint. So if you have that in front of you to look on with, that'll be just fine. We will be signing it at the end if you agree to everything inside, so just having it handy will be helpful. The purpose of this remote learning contract is for Lauderdale County Schools to provide their students access to remote learning during the 2021 school year due to the pandemic. Now, we still want to be able to use these computers after the pandemic and the situation of remote learning is over with that is required. So it's still important to follow these guidelines whether we're going through these issues in the community and in our world or not. And the purpose of this contract is to communicate our guidelines and our expectations of the use of this technology and any of the online resources that we provide to our students. The first thing we're going to talk about is the student email accounts. Lauderdale County, we issued all students Google email accounts. And we assign them usernames and passwords. We've been practicing with students on how to enter their username and password to get onto all of the applications. But just in case anyone needs a reminder, most students, their username was created with their first name, dot last name, no spaces, and then the end is at k12.lced.net. Their password is their last name in lowercase, followed by their student ID. And if you need help with that student ID number, the schools can provide that. They also will be sending home a student practice login sheet to help the students with that, but it's also usually used as their lunch number. None of these usernames or passwords should have spaces, and they should all be lowercase. The username will be used to log into Clever. Clever is a platform which grants access into Google Classroom, and the Google Classroom will be how our students communicate, or excuse me, how our teachers will be communicating with the students. As long as students use their K-12 email account, the communication inside of this K-12 account or any other approved apps that we have loaded onto Clever, they can be monitored. Email accounts that are created outside of the K-12 account, if they are personal email accounts, they cannot be monitored, and it's not the responsibility of the school district if your student chooses to do so. Therefore, all communication between teachers and students and teachers in return should occur on the platforms provided and through their K-12 email accounts. The appropriate use of student emails, we're going to go over a few things that is appropriate, and then we're going to also go over some things that are not appropriate. For the emails, the passwords used should only be used by the student it is assigned to and not be shared with others, because if someone else logs in with your username and password, you could be held responsible for what they share in their content or use to pass on. The student account and online resources are to be used only for the identified educational purposes, so it really shouldn't be used for personal communication. It should be used for assignments, and communication with the instructor or other students if an assignment was presented that they need to communicate about. Communication between the teacher and the student should only be used again on the district educational platform, which is their K-12 email account or any of the platforms we discuss later in this PowerPoint. Inappropriate use of the student emails and accounts are some of the following: using the email for any illegal purpose, using another person's email account. You should never post personal information about yourself or others, such as your address, phone number. You shouldn't have any pictures of yourself on there because these are this is information that can be taken. So just to be safe, do not post any personal information. You should not download or access materials or sites that are abusive, obscene, sexually oriented, threatening, harassing, or illegal. Communicating or facilitating abusive or harassing language, which is also known as cyberbullying, is a very inappropriate use of the student emails. You shouldn't cause harm to their reputation or send emails about other people that is harassing them or abusing them. You should not gain unauthorized access to restricted information. You should not falsely identify yourself through email communications. And you should not misrepresent our Lauderdale County schools in any way. Now, we've talked about student emails that were issued to every student. Next, we're going to talk about educational platforms that we give every student, or give every student access to. Now, what is an educational platform? Our Lauderdale County schools are going to provide tools for effective and meaningful instruction in order to promote student learning and enhance the learning experience and success of remote learners. An educational platform is the method in which the remote learners will engage in educational activities and communication with assigned teachers. So think of this as a hierarchy of different educational platforms that we have access to. Clever is the house that houses all of our educational apps. So Clever is basically just a place that students and teachers can log into using one username and password so that they don't have to go to all the different sites for their educational needs. They can log into Clever with one username and password, and all of the apps that are relevant to those students in that grade level should be there on that site. So they'll only see what grade level apps are relevant to them. Google Classroom then is also an app on Clever. However, think of that as like the teacher and the teacher giving the instruction to the students. So Google Classroom is the mode of communication between the teacher and the students concerning their assignments. And then all of the other apps, which these are just a few that are visible, but all the other apps are think of them as applications on your cell phone. There are different ways that our teachers use the curriculum to enhance the student learning. So it may be additional practice, it may be how they issue their assignments, it may be videos that enhance the lesson. All of these different things are available on the apps that correspond with the curriculum that is provided to our students. So Clever is the house, Google Classroom is the mode of communication between teacher and student, and then the apps are just things that the teacher may issue to the students. Some things you need to know about educational platforms, which all of those would be considered an educational platform, and the email that we talked about at the beginning is also an educational platform. Some security and safety measures: students should not share usernames, passwords, or other account information for their email or apps. Students should report any possible unauthorized use of their account, because some of these accounts students will be getting grades on, so we definitely don't want other students to use your student's username and password, and we don't want your students to use others. Under no circumstance should students attempt to log into another student's platform. Students should not use educational platforms to share personal information such as full names, locations, family information, phone numbers, etc. These educational platforms can be used for teacher-student correspondence, accessing, completing, or submitting class assignments. They can create documents for classwork. They can correspond with other students in the class on activities. They cannot be used for unauthorized personal communication, bullying or harassment, forwarding of chain mail, spam, or commercial content, and they cannot be used for sending inappropriate content or language. The privacy of educational platforms. Our platforms are the property of Lauderdale County Schools, so even though they're issued to your students, the county owns the device, they own the email, and they own the platform, educational platforms. Students should understand that these platforms are subject to monitoring. So just like we can see content that may be harmful to them, we can also see their content as well, at all times, with or without consent. Equipment that is owned by Lauderdale County Schools will be monitored by the building and district level administration to determine if the use of the device, so to make sure it's being used appropriately rather than inappropriately. Students should not video or collect audio recordings of anyone using the device and or the microphone. So that needs to be a definite no-no for our students, because that could get them into a lot of trouble. However, there may be times when teachers issue assignments that require them to record someone, or by their voice or by their visual camera. And if that is required, the teachers will issue some specific instructions and require all parties that will be recorded visually or through the microphone to be aware of it and give permission for the recording. Lauderdale County Schools uses a monitoring and filtering device called BARC for schools, and it monitors the content and offers digital safety while on school accounts. Now keep in mind, it's while on school accounts. That's as long as you're using your K-12 email account, you're on the educational platform. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to be on campus, but it does mean that you have to be on the educational platform. So while this is very effective for people that are using the correct accounts, we cannot guarantee that your students will be monitored if they have their own email account or are off-site. BARC for Schools also disables access to certain sites of any given category, such as well as provides up-to-date reports. So we can get reports, we get emails that may detect certain wording, cyberbullying, threats, violence, sexual content, suicidal ideation, and more. When it's detected, the administrators are notified on the platform dashboard, but they also could be sent an email when some of these keywords, phrases, or pictures may appear. So the reports identify trends that would affect student safety, and our administrators are directly notified, and then once that happens, the schools are notified and the student will be addressed. The BARC for Schools, it monitors our Chromebooks, any usage at any time on the Chromebooks, at home or at school, student accounts, Gmail, the subject, the body, the attachments, any photos, videos, PDFs, any office documents, content, images, comments, and replies. So be safe and be sure to watch your students. Closely monitor them. Even though we know you can't always be right over their shoulder, it's imperative that you have this conversation with them, if you haven't already, that we are very serious about monitoring the usage at home and at school of the devices, the content on these, and we want them to be used for educational purposes only. The equipment. Now we're going to talk about the equipment that your student will be issued. Lauderdale County Schools will provide electronic devices if needed at first. That's what we rolled out for students that were at home learning, and now we plan to issue devices to all students in each grade level to use. The devices will be checked throughout the student's assigned school, will be checked out through the assigned school, and then we're going to also have monthly check-ins. We will send you a date each month where all students are required to bring their device in, open the computer, turn it on for their teacher, make sure the screens are not cracked, make sure there's no issues with the keyboards, nothing's cracked or broken. But we'll do that monthly to check in to try to protect our investment of the computers. We'll also inspect all electronic equipment returned for damage or misuse. And the parent or guardian must accept responsibilities for the damage, loss, and proper care. Students must return any additional items issued with the device at the end of the year. So the student should get a computer, a case for the computer, but one for the computer case to go into, like a bag, I guess, a power cord, protective cover, protective sleeve. They will also get the laptop, but everything that you get with them is your responsibility to keep up with and return at the end of the year. Proper care of the equipment. Keep the device in a secure space. Don't leave it laying around for other people to pick up. Keep it somewhere protected and taken care of. Devices must remain in a protective casing at all times. They have a really good, thick protective case. Please do not try to take them off. They're there to help with the device. The device must be kept in a well-protected, temperature-controlled environment. Do not leave the device in a vehicle or outdoors where the temperatures are not controlled. So heat or cool could damage the device. So you always need to leave it indoors and covered and in a well-controlled environment. You should not let anyone else use or borrow the device. It's your responsibility to take care of it. Loss or damage resulting from someone else's use is still your responsibility. Keep the equipment clean with a soft, dry cloth or computer-safe wipes. You shouldn't spray any type of chemicals or cleaning products on the screen or keyboard. Just a dry cloth should be used. Now they do have the alcohol wipes for sanitation, so that's fine to be used, but they should also say that they're computer safe if you decide to use those. No one should eat or drink around the device, whether that's you or your sibling or your parents. The device should be kept away from all drinks or eating. Do not write on the device. Do not alter the device or place any stickers on it. We're going to have a sticker to identify the student the device belongs to, but other than that, there should be no permanent markings because they will be returned the next year for another student to use. Now we're going to talk about responsibility for damage or loss of the equipment. The student is responsible for maintaining the electronic device and any additional equipment that's issued. That's the computer, the case, the protective sleeve, and the charging cord. Students should use reasonable care to ensure that the device and the equipment are not damaged. In case of damage, please contact the schools, whether it be your teacher, calling the principal or the office, and let them know, because the parent or guardian will be responsible for any necessary repairs for the device or replacement. The student or the parent or guardian should report any damage or loss of the equipment immediately to the school so that we can do something about it. Now, we've put prices on this screen to tell you how much replacing each of those different issues could cost. And before another computer is issued to your student, you will have to pay the replacement costs if you agree to the acceptable use policy. Any laptop considered stolen will require parents to fill out a police report as documentation. And again, there's the replacement cost for the damage or of the lost equipment. At the bottom of page 3 in your AUP, these different bullet points are noted. So we're just going to go over these really quick. But if you want to read along, again, it's at the bottom of page 3 in the AUP and student guidelines. Lauderdale County Schools recognizes the effective use of electronic media and telecommunication networks, that it enhances the quality and the delivery of education in our schools. It provides access to unique resources and opportunities for collaborative work. However, the use of electronic technology is a privilege and is subject to all applicable state and federal laws and policies of the district. Lauderdale County School reserves the right to examine all the electronic mail messages, files on all the Lauderdale County School computers, servers, web browsers, cache files, and websites, the website logs, and any other information stored or passing through our information system. Parents will be required to sign the AUP agreement that's in your hands, which will be kept on file at the school in order for students who wish to access the Lauderdale County Schools network and use the devices. At no time shall there be any expectation of privacy by the students while using the network, any standalone system, or other device. The district reserves the right to examine any information on the or originating on, accessed by, or processed through the Lauderdale County Schools' owned computers, networks, or any other information systems. We can give or not give consent, or excuse me, we can examine with or without the user's knowledge, and we don't have to have consent to do that check. Users should be aware that the electronic communications could, depending on the technology, be forwarded, intercepted, printed, and or stored by others. It's best practice not to store personal information on these computers. In accordance with federal law, Lauderdale County Schools will ensure the safety of students through strict enforcement of acceptable use guidelines and the filtered network that we were talking about, the BARC network, that is consistently monitored for unacceptable content. This shows that a filtered network is at school only, but the BARC monitors in and out of school as well. So just because it says filtered network, that doesn't mean that the BARC filter is not applicable at home as well. Okay, now it's time to sign the agreement if you choose to do so. If you'll look at this, this will be the top of page 4. It says whether or not you are borrowing a device, you still need to sign the agreement to utilize the Lauderdale County accounts and educational platform. So that means whether you're in school or out of school, we need you to sign or fill out the top for the agreement to use the device if you choose to let your students bring these home, showing that you're responsible for them. The students still can use these devices at school, even if they're not allowed to bring them home, simply because the AUP user agreement that was signed at the beginning of the year gives them access to use the devices at school. But this agreement must be signed and returned in order for students to bring the devices home to use and check out. So if you'll look at the top, if you'll just print this information, this just shows us what device and is issued to what student. So print the student's name, the grade, the school they're in, and your name, which is the responsible party. By signing this, you understand that Lauderdale County Schools will not be liable for any damage resulting from a student's impermissible use of the supplied device in violation of the remote learning and user agreement. The parent or guardian and the student understands that any misuse in relation to the Lauderdale County Schools remote learning and user agreement may be subject to consequences as deemed appropriate by the Lauderdale County School System to ensure the safety and protection of our students. The parent, guardian, and the student also understands The financial responsibility may be placed on the parent or guardian and the student due to loss, theft, and/or damage of the device and equipment, which is property issued by the Lauderdale County Schools. The parent and guardian releases and waives any claims against Lauderdale County Schools arising out of the provision of the device and the student's use of the device. And the parent will hold harmless Lauderdale County Schools and its employees against all liability, loss, damage, or expenses. And Lauderdale County Schools may suspend or revoke access if the rules are violated. And in closing, before we finish here, what you need to know is that this acceptable use policy agreement and the guidelines are simply for the protection of your child. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect your students' online access, what they're viewing, what people view of them, and how they're using it. There's too many things out there today that are harmful to our children, and we want to make sure that they're protected. So by them hearing this PowerPoint and this agreement with you all, it's not a bad thing for the parents to go over this with them. And also, in addition to our understanding, tell them what your expectations are of them as well, and what you want them to use this for and what you will not allow them to use this for, and how doing something could get them in trouble, or how they could lose their access to having the device. So if you want to agree with this acceptable use policy and student guidelines, we're going to need your child, the student, to sign and date, the parent to sign and date. We're going to need your home address and phone number, current, and then the dark black shaded box at the bottom. The schools are going to use that to write in the serial number issued to your child that they're responsible for, the school, and the cart and slot number is just the physical number of the device that will be issued to the student. When you complete this document, we ask that you please keep the cover sheet and the 3 front pages. That way you'll always have access to the link to watch this video. You'll also have a link to the PowerPoint without this voice. And you'll also get to keep at home the front 3 pages of the AUP and the student guidelines, so you can keep those on hand. What you need to return is the last page that you just signed, and you need to get that in as soon as possible, because if you don't have it in, your student is not allowed to bring the new Chromebooks home for educational use until it is signed and returned. This last page is information. There's some online safety training if you and your family would like to explore that more on the Clever platform, and there's the link for commonsense.org. And then we have listed the references that we have referred to when creating this document. We try to think of everything, not just the rules and the laws, but we also just try to think of acceptable uses for your child and for our students, and what we would want them to do if it was our child. So thank you for taking the time to listen to this. We hope you choose to enter into the agreement for us, because this is a wonderful opportunity for your children to get to experience using the technology that we've wanted for a while now. So whether they're at home or at school, they can continue to learn and keep up with this fast-paced world of technology, and they will be more suited to enter into the higher education fields later, or a job force where email is a common thing, where technology and the usage of it is a common thing in everyday life. So we just hope you allow your students to take part in this and to bring them home. And if you have any questions, please reach out to your schools. If you need any additional information, please reach out to your schools as well. Thank you and have a good day.